Welcome to The Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with the rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Meet Grimlock, not podcaster. Meet Grimlock King.
What is this I sense? The taint of Primus?
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag here at Geekcast Radio Network. This is our comic book review / discussion podcast. And in the Pull Bag this week, I have Ender of Radio Free Cybertron, tformers.com. What other affiliations do you have?
Right now I'm writing reviews over at Full Metal Hero.
Full Metal Hero.
And I was on the Underbase this week.
Oh, really? Awesome. I'll have to check.
I don't think it's out yet, at least as of this recording.
Yeah, I don't think it's out yet as of this recording. But I'll have to check that out because I like listening to that one.
Yeah, I used to be on there. We used doing comic books now and again, like a year ago. I've been out for a while, principally because I had another kid and I forgot there was such a thing as the rest of the world. 3 kids will do that to you. Once they number you, it's all over. But I'm like a bad penny. I always come up.
Oh, so you're the bad penny that Batman has in the Batcave, huh? From Two-Face's adventure.
Exactly.
So
what's funny is I was making an Indiana Jones reference, I think, but it works both ways.
Yeah. That's well, you know. You keep stealing the Cross of Coronado and wanting it to be in a museum so many times. There's only so many times you can do that in your lifetime, you know?
This is true.
God, I still think, and we are off on a just extreme tangent, ladies and gentlemen, but I still think, for me personally, Last Crusade is my Indiana Jones. I know everyone loves Raiders, and oh my God, it's the best Indiana Jones movie ever. I don't...
I actually kind of like Temple of Doom.
I couldn't. It's Temple of Doom is almost like a horror film.
Yeah, there is that.
But
I just like the ending. You know, I still live in a world where there are only 3 Indiana Jones movies because I've never seen the last one.
The only thing, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry that we're off on this movie tangent on a comic book podcast. But
I want to just say, this isn't my fault. We end up on tangents all the time with me. You started.
I know. Yeah, I know. Honestly, the only good thing about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is at the very end. When
I haven't seen it.
Well,
you're spoiling it for me. I may want to watch it someday. Tell them afterwards.
But I'm trying to save you the agony of having to watch it.
I already said I haven't done it. I'm holding myself off. It doesn't mean I want spoilers. You're going to spoiler me? I write non-spoiler reviews. I want to get spoiled. Have you ever read my reviews? They're like extra short. I always say like they shouldn't take longer to read than the comic.
That's true. Well, unless you're
there are some people. Well, there's a review and there's an analysis. Analysis you can go on and on for like 10 hours, but
that's true.
I think a review is meant to be like, is it good or should I buy it? Without reading it to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't see. Just to kind of curb-tail this, Raiders came out in 81. I was a year old then, so by the time I was 9 in 89 with Last Crusade,
I did get to see Last Crusade in the theaters at the same age, so I was kind of on this. I'm on the same page there with you. You know, Last Crusade is the refined Indiana Jones. Like they've really got what they need in there. They it's all understood. The hat jokes, the Nazis, everything's all in place. You call this archaeology? Love that.
Only the penitent man. The penitent man will pass. All right, so we're here to talk about comic books, and since you mentioned you were a kid and watching Indiana Jones, who or how did you get into comics as a kid, or did you not get into comics as a kid?
Oh, I really, to be honest, I don't think I can specifically remember a time I wasn't reading comics. I read pretty early. Mm-hmm. And my parents were, keen on that. Was a good thing to get me to keep reading, in their opinion. Expressly, that's why my mother would let me buy comic books, was so I would read. Not that I don't know, like I needed help, but I can remember her being upset at a G.I. Joe comic that was during the like Nuff Said thing that Marvel would do sometimes that had no dialogue in it. She was like, "What the hell?" She would read it, but I can remember reading Return of the Jedi adaptation comic books, even though I'd seen it in the theater.
Wow.
When I was 3.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I probably started reading comic books at about 3 years old.
Wow.
Specifically to Transformers, I can say I remember getting the #1 issue off of a rack in a drugstore. That's pretty. I mean, my early comic book reading, that's what it would have been off of, is in like supermarkets or corner stores when they'd have a little circular rack. I'd just get what I could.
Yeah, there's
buying Transformers #1 because the kid on it looked not unlike me. I was a little besides teenager, even though
it's one of those things where when we were kids, like for me, the only place I ever saw comic books, and I said this way back in episode 3 of the show, was in, like you said, supermarkets. Comic books back then, at least in my opinion, were a kid's version of the tabloids today. Like that's the way that the stores, like the grocery store stuff, like that's the way they treated them. Was, oh hey, this is comic. Oh, it's a tabloid. Let's put it on this revolving Lazy Susan rack.
Yeah.
But the other place I had seen them and really got into them was in which I think the business is long gone now. Walden Books.
Yeah.
That's where I first saw them. And what were you reading as a kid? Do you remember?
Yeah,
besides,
I remember. I mean, I have a great deal of the comics I read when I was a kid.
Oh, so you're a Brody then, huh?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a Brody. It's I got a rack downstairs, the little touch not lest ye be touched set of comic boxes. Most of which is actually in order right now, which is kind of crazy. But I know I read a lot of Spider-Man. I read a lot of Batman, a little bit of Superman here and there. Mostly Spider-Man and Batman. I was a big Spider-Man and Batman kid. And I was tremendously into the Adam West 66 Batman show. The reruns they had on when we were kids. I could not get enough of those. I love those. I still love those. I totally got that really worked for me. And I totally, the theater of the absurd part of it went right over my head until I was older, and I still love them for being so ridiculous now. Yeah. But and so I was very into. It was very haphazard, my younger comic book reading, because it was just on those racks. I mean, it's not like they restock each book every month. You'd be lucky if I think I missed one of the first 4 Transformers comics, and then just after that it was whatever was there. I had by the time it had skipped to Headmasters, I had like no idea and stuff like that. Like as time rolled on, I was very lost in those because they changed so rapidly. I'm actually rereading all of the original Marvel right now. Yeah, and including the UK, just so I actually have it in my head in order because it's always been so scattered. But I read and my interest in comic characters was always really avid. I'd watch the cartoons. I remember Spider Friends. I had a lot of Spider Friends watching. And that's probably the only thing I knew the X-Men from at that time. And as time rolled on, I think I read less comic books for a while, like 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. And it's not none, but just more sporadically. Mm-hmm. And we moved. And in my new, when I was like 13, we moved. And in my new grade school, I found the dorks, which were naturally who I was going to be hanging around with. And they were all trading X-Men cards. And that show had just come on and was kind of popular. And I don't think if I'd seen it first or the cards first, but I decided this trading of cards was going to be my, into making friends in my new school. We like moved in the middle of the year. And so I found the comic shop out there, which was like the second one in my whole life. There was one before that I'd seen that was just like, oh my God, there's such a thing as a comic book store. And but the one after we moved, it's still my local comic shop these days. I've moved and come back and all sorts of stuff. Then it was Quantum. Now it's called Dreamland in Libertyville. And I started to get really into the X-Men because of the cards and stuff. And I became a very avid Magneto fan. And I read tons, and then around then, that's when my biggest reading of comic books was going on. I was reading like every X-Men title, and there was like 7 or 8 of them then, and I'd read random stuff
like
that was
Batman
recommended
nowadays.
Yeah, I never. And that's just I'm a big Batman fan, and I can my knowledge base is decent in Batman. I've certainly probably watched all the media that there is to watch, but I've never really read the comics consistently. I've not read none, but I know my Marvel better than my DC is kind of what I was getting at. I don't know Batman comics so well, but you're probably hard pressed to tell a Batman joke I didn't get. I know what's going on. I've seen, and I've certainly in cartoons and stuff seen versions of a great many things. But mostly I was big X-Men fan. Age of Apocalypse was like my big favorite way back when.
Yeah.
And a little bit after that, a little around after Onslaught, I kind of petered out again. It got to be expensive. I wasn't as into a lot of it. I read a lot of Deadpool back in the original runs before it was oversaturated. And I don't not read it because it's oversaturated now, but it is like more than I've been able to reasonably keep up with. It's like, okay, there's like 7 Deadpool books, and I'm not sure which one I was in the middle
of. Oh, that's so funny.
That original run that climaxed him, kicking Captain America in the nuts. That was a big favorite. Transformers wise, I've kept up with just about everything. When it died out, I guess in 91, and then came back as Generation 2 a little while later, which was not. I was listening to your interview. It was correct, Steve. They didn't transition into one into the other. It was like it died and then it came back, and it was still the same writers in between this and 2 and ongoing. It's all the same. It's all Simon Furman. It's all the same guy. Let's see. But I picked up. I read all the Dreamwave stuff, and I was very excited about that. That was kind of. There's sort of the 2 phases of the early resurgence of Generation 1. I think of first there were these bootleg shirts they were selling. That was the first time I saw it again, and I was all excited. And it was funny because I'd really kind of forgotten about the Transformers.
Yeah, around 93, 94, there was, I don't know about comics, but like in other media, there wasn't really anything going on until, Megatron stole that golden disc in 96.
Right. Exactly, and I, these stories, I think my father showed me there was a show to go with it, but I wasn't like totally turned off by the animal thing, but I wasn't like super into it either. It wasn't, especially for some reason I didn't see the gorilla version of Prime for a long time. I just saw the bat one. It's kind of lame. That's not very, it's a little pretty far off of, Optimus Primal, are you kidding me? And then the cartoon, in abstraction, the show was like, okay, that was all right for a cartoon. But at the time, I was 16, 17. I was definitely feeling too grown up.
Yeah.
Stupid kid thinks he's grown up. When I finally grew up, I realized I'd rather watch cartoons. But at the time, it was like, okay, that's all right. I wasn't like down on it or anything, but I wasn't that interested particularly. It wasn't until I think my father actually kept watching it, and when he called me, he was like, "They found the Ark." I was like, "Okay, that's interesting."
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of that media around at the time, and I'd really just kind of, okay, it turned into Beast Wars, and at least it lived on as something. I have fond memories of it. I used to joke, I think, when, I'm totally one of those kids, like, from a broken home. It's like, Peter Cullen was my dad. I'm one of those. I'm still one of those. It's sad. I used to joke that when I heard my conscience in my head, my Jiminy Cricket was Optimus Prime.
Yeah, that got shattered for me in 85, 86, though, before the movie even came out, because Peter Cullen was everywhere back then, and he was the voice of Carr in Knight Rider. I was like, oh my god, an evil Optimus Prime, no!
I thought it was cool. I was happy that it was Remember, in your '80s villains lineup, I was rooting for Venger.
Were you really? Yeah.
Hey, Megatron, because then it would be Peter Cullen versus
Versus.
really what I was going for. I was like, come on, Venger.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's
I, I
yeah.
for Skeletor because I was like, Starscream's just gonna shoot Megatron in the back.
Yeah, that's so true.
And of all battles in the Transformers are lost by Starscream betraying the Decepticons, essentially.
Mm.
Even in the cartoon, he knocks the arc so that so Optimus Prime falls into the little healing beam.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
He's constantly doing stuff that screws up their plans. I always thought that if the scene had gone on for like 2 seconds longer before Galvatron shoots Starscream during the coronation, he would have been like, "As our new leader, I say we surrender to the Autobots. The war is over," because he is like the ultimate Autobot spy. It's like so clear if you watch that cartoon. He is not on their side.
That's so funny. All right, so what are you reading these days? Are you still a Marvel guy, or have you hopped over to DC, or do you like them both? Or
These days, I tend to, for my part, I'd rather pick up a trade most days. I still
right.
recommend to some degree, and I'll read the occasional Deadpool stuff. Really, it's almost, to me, for most stuff, the series has to have passed, and everyone has to say it's good and worth reading, and then maybe I'll go pick up the trade of it. With the Transformers stuff, I read all the IDW stuff. Dreamwave stuff. I didn't like the beginning of Infiltration. I thought it was kind of dull, and comics were just kind of an expense at the time. So I was like, oh, I'll get back to that later. And it wasn't until I started reviewing comics for T-Formers that I went back and caught up with all the Asians and everything, somewhere in the middle of All Hail. And now I think I've read everything, from that. I read everything from that period before I started reviewing. And I got up to the ongoing with Costa. And I don't want to call Costa a bad writer for all the crap I give him. He writes G.I. Joe just fine, but from what I've read. But the problem is when he started writing Transformers, he just kept writing G.I. Joe.
Wow.
And it was just like he just did not get the Transformers at all. Not one little bit. And it was like even within his story, it didn't seem to keep up with what he was trying to do. Like, I felt like his own characters were thwarting the things he was writing because he was trying to write decent characters, and even they were like, this story makes no sense. And I ended up kind of stopping. I had my third child, and it was during that run, and I was actually like correspondent Andy Schmidt, the editor at the time, Transformers books about it, because I was writing all these really negative reviews. One of my favorites being suggesting that his Transformers Continuum. It was meant to be the story so far. And I don't know if interns write it off the wiki or something, but it was just terrible. Just awful. I said that nothing is right in this book except the page numbers.
I'm not hearing this.
My IDW history. I initially picked up some of the infiltrations. I was like a lot of people, was left on the hook after the Dreamwave fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at a time when comics were a little expensive for me, and they just weren't doing it for me. So I figured I'd catch up later, and it ended up being a lot later. Several of the Asians later, and it was actually because T-Formers asked me if I'd be interested in reviewing comics, and I said sure, and I went and furiously caught up with everything I hadn't read, and it was better than I'd given it credit for. I think not entirely my cup of tea, but not flawed in and of itself. And I came in the middle of All Hail Megatron, which I think I liked better than most people. I think partially because I came in the middle and didn't have to sit there and wait through the first 6 months of it. And there was some good stuff after that, the Coda and that, good and bad, but some amazing stuff. And Last Stand of the Wreckers, I think, was around then, which is just one of my all-time favorites. And I'm very happy Nick Roche and James Roberts are currently working on the Transformers books from that, and that's a very good thing. and
yes,
joined by John Barber, who is equally up to the task, I think. But in between then, there was the ongoing, which I think was just a calamity from start to finish. Costa's not a bad writer, but he just kept writing G.I. Joe. The cast just wandered in from G.I. Joe with different names, and the Transformers were like bad background color that made no sense. The emo Optimus Prime wanting to paint his cell black in sort of like, we're killing Ironhide. The day they killed Ironhide, I wrote up a review, and I think it was like, they're not going to kill Ironhide. They killed him so explicitly, they'll probably, give him his own mini in 10 minutes. And I literally got a letter was like, who told you that? I was like, I was making fun of you. And there were other things that struck me right away. The awful character changes. Prowl turned back into like wet noodle second stringer Sunbow character after having been like tremendously awesome in some of the Coda stuff. And they did a spotlight Prowl to explain his character change, and we're like, is that better? And I was like, no, I don't want you to tell me why he sucks. I want you to make him stop sucking. So that continued to go nowhere, and around issue 9, I really dropped it. They were having humans taking out Transformers with hand weapons, and really, if like humans can take out Transformers with hand weapons, the Autobots could have stayed home. It defeats the whole purpose of their universe. Every little bit. It doesn't matter if it's humans or badgers or whatever's on that planet. If they can't physically fight the Decepticons themselves, when Megatron's like, I'm going to take over the universe, Prime could have like put his feet up on the desk and been like, good luck with that. It just there's just no point to it. And I was thinking, when I stopped reading it, I kind of felt like I was bluffing, because I couldn't review anymore at the time. But as I left, I said, because I'm not reviewing anymore, as suggested by IDW. Since I don't like it, I'm not going to read them anymore. And I really kind of thought, you know what, I'm full of crap. I'm saying that, but I've been reading these things forever. I'll probably keep reading it. But I just didn't get around to it. It was real, like, couldn't be bothered. I just kind of forgot about it for a long time. And just when I was thinking of peeking my head back in to see what was going on, it was like, and now we're going to fight the D-Void. I'm serious. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't want to. It was so stupid. It was just ridiculous. That name, the D-Void, he sounds like a Masters of the Universe reject character. It was literally D/Void, or Void was its name. I just kept envisioning, like, I don't know, the big muscular figure, like from, He-Man toys, but it's all like a star field, but then with like furry panties and a cape. You're like, D-Void! That's what that's invoked to me.
So D-Void is Transformers' version of Beast Man.
Yeah, it sounded like it to me. And that's not, like, it was this desperate attempt to not do Unicron. And, it was like this, and then it was this giant merge thing they called Decepticon, which just looked ridiculous. And it struck me, a lot of writers do this when they're leaving a book. I think, like, Grant Morrison can be very guilty of this, is this, like, attempt to write the last story in, like, something that's been going on for 30 years. It's just like, don't do that. You're like, I'm going to break all the toys on my way out the door. I'm going to kill Magneto. I'm going to cut his head off. Yeah. I just, it's funny how the reaction is always so, equal and opposite to that. It's like, I'm going to cut Magneto's head off. It's like comic book 2 days later. It's like, that wasn't even Magneto. It was like, congratulations. You've like taken your character out of the continuity. Good job. And, it just gets ridiculous.
Congratulations, Wolverine, but your Magneto is in another castle.
No, that's exactly it. Well, that's I can get to this later. We'll talk about these comics, and I'll complain about how people talk about Megatron's character. But so then I knew who was coming in to write the new comics that are out right now, Robots in Disguise and
Mother Meets the Eye,
which are I know they're like these big phrases. I don't know why they call the comics these things. Really, the title doesn't mean anything to do with the books. It's just old phrases. And I really kind of feel like those are the two phrases that Transformers really need to start forgetting a little more. It's their gimmick, and it's sort of like, I think it's been 30 years in terms of G1 literature at least. I think we're over the gimmick.
So would you rather have it be Transformers Maximize and Terrorize?
It might as well be. It might as well be for all those titles mean, and at least it wouldn't be, Robots in Disguise or More Than Meets the Eye, because I remember being like thinking about that when they talk about the movies and stuff, like, or maybe even the new Prime show. You always get some, new creative whatever person in charge of it, like, we really want to do the, like, Robots in Disguise. We have a reason for them to be in disguise, and it's like, it's okay. It's just, the gimmick should stay, but like focusing on it just seems ridiculous to me. And with the comics, the new comics don't actually do that, but they still bear those monikers, front and center. It's just like,
well, they need to, at least the way that I see it, because, I'll tell the listeners this now. The only reason, besides the fact that I enjoy talking with you, the only reason why we're even here today is because it's all your damn fault of me getting into More Than Meets the Eye, because you said on Twitter, about a month ago, I think, or a couple weeks ago, something about, oh my God, that origin of Shockwave has scarred me for life. Or you said something about Shockwave's origin. I think it's in issue 11 or 12.
Yeah, it's in this section called Shadow Play of More Than Meets the Eye. Again, like, here's More Than Meets the Eye ostensibly being a comic about the crew of the Lost Light looking for the Knights of Cybertron way out in deep space. But this is set in the past on Cybertron. They're like telling a story about pre-war history.
Right.
So, I mean, like, the thing about More Than Meets the Eye is it kind of can be about anything.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, and I was like, ooh, and then I had asked you, I was like, so do I need to catch up in order to even get this? And you were like, yeah, kind of. So then I went out and I sought out the, as of then, 2 volumes that were on sale. Actually, a buddy of mine, Jeremy Fine, actually got me a volume 1 because my comic shop, apparently, it's back ordered for some stupid reason. I don't know why volume 1 of More Than Meets the Eye would be back ordered when I found a link to it on Amazon for $12.16, no problem.
I got bad news for you on that front too. You need to, at the end of the ongoing, there are a couple issues that you need to read.
Okay.
That are set in the past. Now, it's kind of funny when I went back through and reread, because I caught up on all this stuff. I, didn't want to read the ongoing. I feel like as a reviewer, I should know what's going on. And there were a couple issues in there that I thought, like, wow, these are really good. Maybe I judged these too harshly. This seems to really get better towards the end. And I checked a little closer, and it wasn't. Those weren't written by Costa. I think it was either Barber or Roberts who wrote them, but I was like, oh. Wow. Or maybe I was like completely right. That could be too. And I'm trying to I'll look it up for you. Maybe somebody could tell us who's listening if they know. There are 2 episodes set in the past of Cybertron that involve the characters that you're going to see around the Shockwave origin thing. And you don't have to read those, but it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where, I might as well get into it, and I see why they did the whole. I agree with you. They should probably step away from those monikers, but at the same time, hey, why not own the third year?
It doesn't matter in these instances.
Yeah,
I was
it doesn't
a little
matter
worried when they brought them up.
The reason why that they've done it is one book tells one story, More Than Meets the Eye tells one story, and then Robots in Disguise is that completely other? Because I'm not reading RID, so is that completely different characters?
Yeah, that's everyone who stayed behind on Cybertron. So
okay.
a whole other can of shit's happening there. That's all a whole other thing. And it's very good too. They're both entirely worth reading. I've been given really good reviews to the last few of these that I've read. I've only been reviewing again on Full Metal Hero since, like, I don't know, 3-4 issues ago. But they've all been really good. I've actually been a little embarrassed because I'm used to being kind of a harsh reviewer And I give a lot of 4s and 5s, and I've been doing that. I actually wrote my review today that I wrote a little apology at the back that I'm like, I'm sorry, when they start to suck more, I promise I'll be harsher. It's funny, I see some of the other reviewers are much harsher than I am, and I don't know if it's just they're a little more detail oriented, but when Costa was putting me into a coma, I tended to notice things like if the backgrounds were bland or something like that. But when the comic's really good, if there's not, if the mise-en-scene isn't quite up to par, I'm not as likely to notice if I'm really caught in the comic. Oh, this is my son coming to interrupt me.
Awesome.
Hey, Alex, you got anything to say about the Transformers? No? He's my little clone here. This kid, and he is.
Yeah, do not show him the movie until he's at least 9.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was having big, wondering about that last couple of years. What I do around Easter is I watch the movie on Good Friday, and then I'll watch the Return of Optimus Prime on Easter.
Well, at least you haven't shown him Zombie Prime yet.
Right. Oh man.
Dark Awakening.
I wrote a version of I think what's it called, like the Nicene Creed or whatever, that has a reference that Prime was buried and then zombified. I do a nice sacrilegious thing for Easter around then, because literally that's when I got my Power Master Prime. After I thought he'd been dead, I was so one of those kids who cried like a baby when I found out he died in the movie, and so I got my Power Master Prime for Easter one year. So for me, I always say Easter is when Prime rose from the dead.
A zombie transforming Easter bunny. Nice.
Yeah, there we go. Well, they make a surprising array of Transformers related Easter jive.
Yeah. In future episodes, Ender and I will be reviewing. I'm going to be doing it trade style. I don't know about you, but we're going to be reviewing each of these More Than Meets the Eye trades at least, and I have not gotten into Robots in Disguise. I don't know if I can get into Robots in Disguise financially.
You don't have to read what comes before, and frankly, especially what comes immediately before is kind of garbage. This is what ticked me. I didn't get immediately into Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye for the simple reason, even though I really liked all the writers involved, I was wary of it because there was just such a hole to be dug out of. What I would have liked to see with that set of writers, I would have said, screw it, reboot, let these guys build a nice G1 Transformers universe that we can all live in happy.
Right.
That's what I would have liked to see. Now that it's been over a year and they've built a universe that they've been digging out of that hole, I wouldn't say that would make any sense to do now. Because they've got a universe going, we can enjoy it. It's fine, but it is sad that how much crap they've had to dig out of to get here. But it's really good. These are some of the best comics I've really read in a long time. And actually, I just reviewed. Thank you, Alex. That's Alexander Magnus, by the way, in case anyone's wondering.
For a second there, I thought it was like, the stepson of Mad Stan from Batman Beyond.
No. No, Alexander Magnus. And, was it More Than Meets the Eye 16 I just reviewed that comes out tomorrow. And it makes me proud to be a Transformers fan. It's actually a very kind of socially conscious book, and I can't spoil or anything yet. I shouldn't, but
right.
It really, I don't know. It's very character driven. It is, people talk about the Transformers derogatively, saying something. It's just giant robots hitting each other, and this is a great comic book that's worth reading. It is definitely not somewhere to jump in. You'd have, it needs a lot of backstory, but it's giant robots talking to each other about their feelings. But I always say this is my driving theory about the Transformers. I say this a lot, so get used to it. No one gives a crap about what giant robots from outer space would be like. Not one little bit. What brings us to the Transformers, what makes it interesting, and what keeps us coming back is what the Transformers is about, is what we would be like if we were giant robots from outer space.
Yes,
They're anthropomorphic. The more like us they are, the more interesting they are. The more you separate them out, the duller they become.
Yeah.
I think lots of Transformers media has fallen into that trap. So, these comics, that's what Simon Furman discovered that made his comics great back in the day, and that's what makes More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise truly worthy reads, and they're the only comics I am reading right now consistently. With my long and storied history reading comics, that's what I keep up with.
So you haven't picked up... actually, you probably could pick it up next month when it comes out. Rage of the Dinobots trade paperback.
I've read most of Rage of the Dinobots already. I think I might have read the whole thing. Like I just got back into it. I've been playing a little catch up in some of the recent stuff.
Yeah. That's where I really started with Transformers comics, was that 4-issue miniseries, Transformers Prime, Rage of the Dinobots, and by the end of that, I was like, I think it's issue 4 that before you even get to the end of the book, you turn a page, there's an ad, Transformers Prime Beast Hunters coming in May. I'm like, what? Because they're starting a new ongoing for it. And I was like, this is interesting. My only complaint about Rage of the Dinobots is there's too much Grimlock, not enough Swoop. I love Grimlock. Don't get me wrong, I love the guy, he's awesome, but I want more focus on some of the other Dinobots.
Yeah, that's the thing. All through comic book history with the Dinobots, if there was a Dinobots comic, it would be like those G.I. Joe comics that were Snake Eyes focused for a while. That would be like the Dinobots in little letters, and be like featuring Grimlock, and, across the whole topic of the book. It's just that's how they would be. He is the big name character there. It's sad how few toys are correspondingly made. I have there must be 7-8 Grimlock toys that are essentially the same toy. And rare nary a Swoop to go with them. And of course now they always have to call Slag Slug.
Slug.
I can't stand that. And
I can't stand it. I can't stand it either. Okay.
You know why it is?
I know why it is, because they turned slag into essentially a curse word in the
You can't use the curse word either. You can't say slag, because in the UK, it is a curse word. It means whore. It's like saying whore. A slag.
God.
Now, this is the thing. I can understand that to some degree.
Brits, you ruined it. Damn it, you ruined it.
For the Brits, but I don't blame them, because it's like we didn't have a TV show for 5 years called TJ Hooker. The word can mean something else. I think we can get over it. Yeah. And I love that his name was a swear. I thought that was hysterical. I wrote a fanficky script for an animated movie 10 years back, and I had them run into Slag. They were looking at a notepad going, "Slag? Your name is Slag? What's wrong with Slag?" Nothing. My bad. Just okay, your name can be Slag. I love that it was a swear.
Yeah,
Your name is Slag.
And I love how now because in my opinion, and again, I know that we're not really talking comics at this point. We've gotten into other medias, but in my opinion, Transformers Prime is this generation's G1. That's just my personal opinion. I know you probably don't agree with it by that horrible sigh you just let out.
We don't actually know what Optimus would have done because he's not here.
You're pretty good at stating the obvious, Bulk. Anything else you'd like to mention that we already know?
Nothing I can say in front of the children.
Where were we? We were on yet another tangent, and in my personal opinion, and heaven forbid that, Primus smite me for this, I truly believe that Transformers Prime is this generation's child's G1.
And I'm saying no, because there's a couple of reasons. I just think it's too serious and a little too dull for kids, for kids. I think it says a lot that it needed to have a companion show in Rescue Bots that was this is the Transformers for Kids show.
Yeah.
Why does there need
no, I agree with that. I'm just saying,
you're saying it's going to be the G1. I mean, think about G1, okay? Our G1.
Yes.
the Transformers were superheroes from outer space who lived under a volcano. Okay? Transformers Prime, they're refugees from outer space with post-traumatic stress disorder who live under a rock. I mean, they just are like, oh, the ongoing nightmare of being an Autobot.
To tie this all back into comics,
I can't look at my feet without wanting.
I cannot wait to see what happens next month in May with the Beast Hunters ongoing. I cannot wait to see what how that happens, and because that's continuing the adventures of the Dinobots from Rage of the Dinobots, and they're still on Cybertron and doing whatever, fighting Shockwave and whatever else. But
if it's a recap of what happened in the show, nothing happens until issue 3 or 4.
Oh.
Nothing.
Thanks for the spoilers.
Nothing.
Yeah, and the only good part about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is at the very end, your grandfather would have been proud. You bastard! All right, so the whole point here is, ladies and gentlemen, is that what I'm interested to see...
grandfather, David Niven? Anyway.
I'm interested to see if... I've heard the Underbase Lady Wreck and her other cohorts interview Margaret Scott twice, and Margaret had said that their thing on the book with her and Mike Johnson as writers, they want to be able to tell their own stories, but if it does tie into the show and the show brings the Dinobots on, then they'll run with that and go with that. I'm interested to see if they do that, even though this is the last season of Transformers Prime. I'm really interested to see what they do there, and I'm really crossing my fingers that they get Greg Berger and Michael Bell to reprise Grimlock and Swoop.
That would be cool. I want to clarify, I don't dislike Transformers Prime. I think especially the second season really picked up. But I just don't think it's much of a kid's show.
Well, no, it's made for... No,
it's a little
I
dumb.
do agree with you. It is made for it is made for, people our age as fans of a 30-year-old franchise. I agree with that. And I agree that the Rescue Bots thing is the kids. But what I'm saying is,
my kids watch it.
Huh?
My kids watch these shows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do have some kid, feedback.
Right.
But
right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you're showing your children both of these cartoons. So technically, both of them are their G1. That's my only...
No,
I'm not saying
that...
that...
my kid's G1 is... It's G1.
G1.
It's called Netflix, everybody. Not that I didn't have the DVDs. My kids watch 1980s Transformers. They watch He-Man.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
I mean...
All right, so I think this has gone on long enough. This has been hilarious. This has been so fun. Even with all the technical difficulties we've had today, but this has been so fun. Like I said, Ender will be back, and I think how we're going to do this is we're going to review More Than Meets the Eye in trade form, because that's how I have it. I don't have it single issue. I have the first 3 volumes.
It's probably better that way.
Yeah.
I think almost everything. These things are written to be trades. I mean, it's pretty...
oh, yeah.
It's how the industry's rocking these days.
Yeah,
I wish they'd just release a trade every 6 months or something.
I know. What pisses me off, because I'm more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. Yeah. Oh boy, I almost made a bad Grayson joke there for a second.
Flying gravestones? Sorry.
Wow. Oh boy. But what makes me so upset, and I don't want to just go to DC and say, hey, how does this work? What makes me so upset is when they release trades, they'll release in hardcover first. And then they'll release trade paperback 3 or 4 months later. And I'm like, no, because I don't want to have to get a hardcover, and then, oh my God, I might ruin the binding. Because sometimes, like, specifically to More Than Meets the Eye Volume 2, there are some times where there's a word, and my eyesight, even with glasses, is not that great. But I don't even... And that's the other thing that pisses me off about a lot of these comics is half of them don't even have page numbers anymore.
I hate that.
Yeah. But, like say there's a panel that goes so far into the fold of the binding of the book where you have to basically pry it open to see what a character is saying. I think they're gonna kill me.
Yeah.
That's why I prefer the soft cover trades versus a hardcover, where the hardcover, you stretch it far enough, the binding will break on it.
Yeah, I gotta say too, with the releasing the hardcovers first, I really dislike it when someone is trying to bilk extra money out of me by virtue of exploiting my impatience. It doesn't work for me, on me anyway. I mean, I'm not gonna oh man, I have to buy the hardcover because I don't want to wait the extra however many months. Frankly, if I've waited that long, a few months already,
yeah,
I'll wait the extra couple. With the Transformers stuff, if I want to review it, in a timely fashion with the releases, I don't have that luxury. So it's nice I can, get some of those in advance. But I vastly prefer to buy and trade. And I realize that, maybe that's not what's best for the industry and whatnot. It's just for my own preference and the way I operate. I would much rather get a complete story. And I feel like half the time they're writing them for the trades anyway. So there's this like really weird, superficial episodic structure being imposed on something, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just like, oh, forget it. Just, write the trade or don't.
Yeah. Well, specifically to something like Batman, where, like, in Batman 19, and I'm not going to spoil this, but it shows, like, the splash cover of Batman 19 is basically, who can make Batman, who can make Bruce Wayne use a gun. And the splash out cover, it shows Jim Gordon, and I'm not going to spoil who the villain is in that issue, but it's one of those things where what I hate about single issues, and I understand the comics industry has to do that in order to pay them, to get paid and to make money. When I'm reading a story, and all of a sudden the next page is, hey, coming up in May, Jeff Johns, just as an example, Justice League, or Aquaman, or whatever the hell he's writing these days. It's like the story stops, ad. Sometimes there's 2 ads per page, and it's like, oh my god, I'm still going to get single issues because I have that same need that a lot of other people have, where it's like, oh my god, I have to read this now. But with the Transformers stuff, I most definitely can wait for Volume 4 for More Than Meets the Eye, because I've pretty much got everything now, and I don't know if I'm going to start collecting singles for that. I don't know yet. Yeah. I haven't decided.
Batman's going to use a gun?
I'll tell you off.
I don't approve. Yeah, we should get off there. I love telling my Batman jokes. I always thought if Batman's going to use a gun, it should not be like, he fires a shot and falls down crying. It should be like, it's like, okay, everybody, I'm sorry, I can't think of any other way. And just like, busts out 2 of them and it's like, bam, 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 bam. And it's like, Russell Crowe at the end of The Quick and the Dead. Like, oh my god, you can use a gun? Like, of course I can use a gun. I just don't. I'm Batman. I can do anything.
I'm the goddamn Batman.
Goddamn Batman. Of course I can shoot a gun. Like, I'm the best marksman in the Northeast. Kiss my ass.
You have seen Batman Beyond, right?
Oh, yeah.
Second time in the DC animated universe that he actually used a gun. The first time was in Justice League because Deadshot possessed him. Or not Deadshot. Is it Deadshot or Deadman? I don't know. Floyd. I don't know. I forget. One of them stupid characters.
Yeah,
possesses him.
Keep up with some of the, DC characters. That's always been part of my problem.
Yeah.
Every time someone says chillax, I think it's an obscure DC Frost villain.
No, in a way.
That's so funny. But yeah, there was only 2 times he actually used a gun. But anyway, so Ender will be back. We will be reviewing the More Than Meets the Eye trades, volumes 1, 2, and 3 in separate episodes here in the future in the pull bag. You want to tell people where they can follow your comedic genius?
Yeah, most of the time these days, if you go to fullmetalhero.com, I've been reviewing comics there, and that's the principal place I am being funny. If you go to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Ender Hates, one word, capital E.
Capital H.
Is it capital H? I don't know.
Yes, I think so. It was at one point.
I'm there somewhere.
All right, so that is going to do it for this episode of the Pull Bag, and we will catch you next time when Steve and I will be reviewing the 19 issues for the Bat Books from DC. Keep reading those comics.
Coming to Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 21st and 22nd is GrandCon Gaming and Comics Convention. presented by Celebration Cinemas. Join us in playing or chatting it up with fellow enthusiasts in a community that understands your passions. Get lost in the adventure of your favorite role-playing game. Admire costumes and art from vendors and attendees. Meet the creators behind your favorite mainstream and independent games and comic books. Check out unpublished games and sneak peek at things to come. You can get all this and more at GrandCon. For more information, please visit www.grand-con.com.
Scientific gobbledygook, Starscream.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.